Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Mystery Fix, where we talk about writing mysteries. My name's Zara Altair, and today I want to talk about getting your cops right in your mystery. It's just so important when you have a fictional world and you want to depict real cops. So, unless you worked in law enforcement, writing realistic cops for your mystery involves getting to know the law, getting to know law enforcement procedures, and a realistic picture of how cops think, act, and work. So, reading and online research will give you a general background on how cops operate, but knowing a law enforcement officer who's willing to share details about procedures and daily life and worst case scenarios is like gold. So connect with your local law enforcement agency to find a resource. And this is going to take some time and some patience. It may take time because cops are busy. And perhaps someone on a team can refer you to a recently retired detective who has more available time. You're just going to have to pursue getting to know that law enforcement officer who can help you with the details. And then you'll be on your way to verisimilitude that engages readers and doesn't get your book tossed because of inaccurate details. I know that people love noir loners who go against all odds and the bad guys, but in today's world, real cops work as a team and call in other professional teams for various aspects of an investigation, especially a murder investigation. So you'll need to know who does what, where your fictional cop is located. And the cop's location is very important because who's involved and what the procedures are change with locality. So big city locations with many personnel that are already on the police force are going to be very different than small town cops who may have to call in the local sheriff's department for crime scene details and get some help. And other teams that may be involved are crime scene specialists who come in and look at and evaluate the actual crime scene, the forensic laboratory that does all the processing of the evidence, the coroner or medical examiner, and you'll need to find out which title applies to the coroner or medical examiner in the place where your cop works. So these teams and what they're called vary depending on location. So you're going to have to be location specific with your details. So wherever your detective is located, make sure he's surrounded with the right colleagues. Sometimes it's really hard to connect with a local cop, and I understand. I've been trying to connect with someone here where I live for a couple of years, and so far I haven't had any success. But meanwhile, there are some cops willing to share their experience with writers, and I highly encourage you to take advantage of their expertise and their willingness to share. So the following three cops have years of experience and the willingness to share their knowledge specifically with writers because they want your mystery to be as correct as possible. So first I want to talk about B. Adam Richardson, who's a police detective and does an amazing amount of activity to support writers in getting their facts right, from cop lingo to procedures and jurisdiction. He has a website, Writers Detective Bureau. He has a podcast with the same name, Writers Detective Bureau. He has an email newsletter, Writers Detective APB, All Points Bulletin, that shares monthly details about cops and what's going on. And he also has a very active Facebook group, the Writers Detective Q&A community, where you can join with other writers to answer questions. And the questions get very specific because writers are concerned about the story they're writing right now. It's pretty amazing, and the answers are pretty amazing as well. Another cop who likes to help writers is Lee Laughlin, and he conducts the Writers Police Academy as well as maintaining a website called The Graveyard Shift. And he also has a group forum, which is Crime Scene Writer 2 at groups.io. I'm going to put all these links um, below in the description so you'll have all the links because they're really important and they're great places to know. Okay, Police Chief and retired homicide detective Derek Pacifico taught interview and interrogation techniques to law enforcement personnel around the world. He offers a course for writers on how to do the same. It's called Writing Fictional Police Interrogations. It's found at Udemy, and the link will be below. And he also has a book for writers, The Writer's Guide to Homicide, which gives background and provides insight into what cops do when faced with legal parameters. Derek also does private consultations for writers where you can send him a chapter or two and ask for his feedback on the verisimilitude of the cops in your story. So Derek is a great resource as well. All three of those individuals are super helpful. The forums and Facebook groups are places for you to get specific answers to the questions about details you want to include in your story, and no detail is too small, believe me. Responses come not just from Adam Richardson or Lee Laughlin, but a lot of other law enforcement personnel and other forensic scientists. People are involved in those forums, so somehow you will get the answer. They're really quite amazing groups. So if you want to keep your details realistic, I really encourage you to use those resources. So first-hand research, if being a cop isn't part of your personal background, but you want to write about cops, so first-hand research is the way to get the best informational details for your story. And I realize that sometimes it's very hard to find a law enforcement officer who's willing to share time. That's why I wanted to alert you to these resources, because they're extremely helpful and you can be as specific with your questions as you need to be, like stating what town and what state and what the situation is, because procedures and how things are handled and the personnel involved really do vary according to geographical sites. So do your homework, and get that research done so you'll get the details right when writing about cops. And you'll avoid mistakes like having a cop share investigative details with your cozy mystery heroine. That cop is actually breaking the law. So you don't want to have unrealistic characters in your story. So make sure you get those details right. Every novel takes background research, and mysteries often involve cops as well as civilians. So if there's a cop anywhere in your mystery, make sure you get the details right. Um, you want your story to be realistic and believable, and the readers will really appreciate the work that you do, and they certainly will not toss your book aside and stop reading because it's obvious that you haven't done your homework. So, writing about cops is a place where you really need to do your homework. All right, I hope these resources help you, and thank you for being here. If you are writing your first novel, be sure to get your mail list going. And I want to thank my sponsor, ConvertKit, which is a great place for creatives to set up an email list and manage it with all kinds of bells and whistles. It's just amazing. It's easy to do, and it keeps you in charge of who's on your list. All right, thanks, and I will see you next time.